Hey everyone, welcome back to Mentor Monday, our first Mentor Monday of 2019. Super excited about that. Thank you to everyone who submitted some great questions. We will be starting off with probably a very popular question that a lot of people are thinking about, which is, when do you know when it's time to leave your job? And those of you that are joining us live, let me just kind of explain how this works. So some people have submitted some career questions that we will be answering during Mentor Monday. My name is Lauren McGoodwin. I'm the founder and CEO of Career Contessa, and we've pre-selected a couple of questions, but if you're joining us live, you get to also add your questions into the comment section, and we will answer as many as we have time for today as well. And then the replay of this will be available for 24 hours on our Instagram channel, and then we will upload a replay of this Instagram or Mentor Monday on our YouTube channel also. So some really great resources for you. So definitely, if you're joining live, feel free to take advantage of being able to ask your questions specifically. So like I said, we're starting with the first question, which is probably a popular one, which is, when do you know that it's time to leave your job? And I would say we've definitely have created some videos about this and some articles about this on careercontessa.com. So feel free to absolutely reference those for more information. But I would say the big one is if you are feeling like there's no opportunity for growth. An example might be you're on a team where you're basically the entire department, and there's no room for you to work on other projects or to collaborate with other people. Or maybe you're feeling like, hey, I've been doing the same type of role for 5 years and I'm just not really interested in what is the next step. So maybe there is room for growth, but you're not really interested in any of those areas. Maybe you always wanted to work in events. I'll just use this as an example. You always wanted to work in events. You've been working in events. But really there's just something that's not totally fulfilling for you, but the part of event planning that you really do like is related to project management, and now you're thinking, I'd just like to switch it up for a new industry. So there can be a lot of reasons when you know it's time to leave your job, but I would think about, before you give your notice and decide that you're gonna just start applying to jobs, I would really be thoughtful about what is it that you like in your current job and what is it that you want so what do you really like in your current job? What do you hate in your current job? And what type of opportunities do you want to look for next, so that you are leaving, or at least while you're working there, you're starting to explore other opportunities, because maybe you love your company, but the department's just not the right department for you. So when you know that it's time, I think anytime you feel like you have that itch, it's at least a good time to start exploring the other opportunities. Not necessarily always leave right away, but definitely explore, because it is easier to find a job when you already have a job. And that's kind of the nature of the beast that is job searching. Okay, so next question also has to do with leaving a job, which is, I've been at a job, she said, I've been at a job for only 8 months, but the long commute is killing me. Is it wrong to leave? So here's what I would recommend is, definitely when you took the job, you knew you were gonna have a long commute, but I'm sure, like a lot of us, it's like, oh, that won't be so bad, I'll be able to make it work. And now that you actually have it, you realize how important it is to you. So before you leave, I would try talking to them and being really honest about the fact that, hey, this commute is way more brutal than I was expecting. Is there any possibility of having some flexibility with my schedule? So can I come in earlier and leave later to work around traffic times? Maybe it's just that the commute is really long. One day a week, can I work from home? And if they say no to all of that and they're not even open to it because you've only been there for 8 months and that conversation is just not part of who they are as a company, then what I would say is you should start looking for jobs, but you should only look for jobs that are within, figure out what commute time you can. This is actually something that we recommend a lot at Career Contessa is, before you start job searching, think about what are your must-haves. The must-haves could be a commute. You want a commute that's 30 minutes or less. Maybe the must-have is that you want to work on a team with 3 or more people, but not more than 10, whatever it is. So we have a free worksheet on Career Contessa called Figure Out Your Next Career Move. I would highly recommend that you check out that worksheet before you leave this job, because if you are going to leave because of a commute and you want to find something closer by, you first want to think about, okay, what else is really important to you so that you can make sure this doesn't happen again. But you also are going to want to explore the opportunities that are within that 30-minute radius or whatever it is. So I would definitely say don't just quit your job today. Start having some conversations with them first, and then kind of do that exploration about what is around you, because maybe you look around at what other jobs or companies are within that 30-minute commute and you realize, like, I really like what I'm doing. Maybe I need to consider moving a little bit closer. So a couple of options there for you. I understand I have an hour plus commute each way, each day. So I totally feel you on the commute thing. The tools that I use to make the commute better, certainly scheduling phone calls while I'm in the car. I pretty much have no shame about that. Podcasts, books on tape, those have been really big lifesavers for me personally. All right, next question is it okay to reach out to a company's recruiter via LinkedIn, no connection, after applying? I would say absolutely yes to this. So if you have applied for a job through an online application system or something like that, and you find the recruiter on LinkedIn, I would absolutely add them as a connection and include a note. My note would probably say something like, hi, so-and-so, I recently applied to XYZ position at your company. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn as well. So give them, when you connect, make sure you add that note just to give them a little bit of context about why you're connecting, especially if you don't have any connections with them. I think that's a great way to really find a compromise between adding a connection, a cold connection, and not. And I do think it's important for the recruiters for you to try to create that personal relationship with a recruiter while you're applying for the job. Ultimately, they're the ones that are gonna hopefully take a longer look at your resume. They're gonna be the ones to set up an interview with you. And recruiters are really your advocate during the job search process. They want you to get the job. They want you to be the right person for it. So it's great to start to build that relationship. So if you're joining us live on Mentor Monday, I can see there's definitely a bunch of you that are. If you have any career questions, be sure to add them in the comment section, and we'll be answering as many of them live as we can during our Mentor Monday today. And if you're just now joining us, Mentor Monday, we do this once a month where we answer your career questions. My name is Lauren McGoodwin. I'm the founder and CEO of Career Contessa, and we'll also have the replay of this Mentor Monday up on our YouTube channel. So if you've asked our question and we're answering it right now, don't worry, you can always get our advice year round by going to that YouTube channel. Okay, next question, and these were all questions that were submitted before today's Instagram live, is what's your advice for a new entrepreneur going into a field that she has no connections in? So naturally, if you are going to launch a business in a field that you don't have any connections in, you're going to want to build connections in that. So I actually remember a couple of years ago, a company, they were launching a company that was in the female career space, and they didn't know anybody, and they were brand new, and they didn't come from that space. So they weren't like recruiters before or something else where they, had any personal connections that they could really lean on. So what they did is they made a list of companies that were in a similar space that they wanted to connect with. They were in New York, I was in LA, but they reached out to me and they said, hey, we're starting this company that's gonna be focused on XYZ. You're in a similar space. We'd love to connect with you via phone for 20 minutes. Would you be open to that? So what's important about what they did is they told me, what they're building, why there was a reason to connect with me, and then they made it really easy for me to say yes, because they only wanted, 20 minutes of my time via phone. So you want to make it really simple for those other entrepreneurs to say, sure, I would love to connect with you and potentially collaborate. And the entrepreneurial community is really, we understand what it's like to, and we probably have, do remember what it was like when we were first starting out. So I think you're probably going to have a fairly high success rate. You just need to actually ask for those connections and make that list. Not everyone's going to say yes, which is why you want to make your list with, multiple companies in there. Okay, someone asked a question. C. Fair said, do you think there's a preference on Word document resumes or PDF stylized resumes? So my best advice on this is when you are sending your resume directly to a person, so that means in their email or maybe through LinkedIn as a attachment or something like that, always send a PDF, because it allows the formatting to not get to not change between your email server and whatever you use and the next person. If you are applying through an applicant tracking system, you want to do a little bit of research to see if the applicant tracking system can read a PDF, or if it can only accept Word documents because it can't read, so PDFs are like large images, and some applicant tracking systems can read the words on those PDFs and some can't. So do a little research. Be really mindful when you are applying for a job online. If they say to upload just a Word doc or just a PDF, usually you can see in the URL of the company what type of applicant tracking system they use. So let's say they use JobVite or Greenhouse. Those are pretty popular. You might be able to do a little research on Greenhouse or JobVite and see if either of those platforms can accept a PDF. Because my preference is PDFs always, because I think they look nicer and there's more consistency with the formatting from place to place. But the reason why Word documents are important is because we know for a fact that the computer doesn't read the words on that as an image. So it's a little bit of a yes and no answer there, but it's totally something that you can find out and then decide what's the best option for you. It's a great question. Okay, so we got one more question submitted to us that I'm going to answer today. So again, if you're watching live, feel free to ask questions. They said, what are the pros and cons of working with a recruiter? So I'm going to assume that in that question, what they meant is working with kind of like a headhunter or an agency recruiter. So there are agencies that you can submit your resume to, and basically they will help place you in a company or a job. The pros of that are that you get that support. You're probably going to have more leads, potential interview leads. Sometimes they will work with you on your resume or your interview skills. And oftentimes there are agencies out there that are very specialized. So let's say you work in retail, fashion retail or something like that. You might be able to find an agency where they only focus on those type of companies or placing those type of roles. And so they can give you a lot of insight in that. So there's a lot of positives of working with an agency. I would say the con of working for an agency is that they don't work in-house for the company. So the difference is when you say, why did you choose to work here? What do you like about working here? Leadership, management, culture. They're not going to be the best people to answer that. The employees of that company are going to be the best people to answer that. So pros and cons, I think that if you have a skill set that you can go and use it at a lot of different companies and you want to get their advice on your resume, at least, if I was job searching, I would say there's no harm in going with an agency as well as applying directly online. Just recognize that usually the way an agency recruiter is getting paid is when they place you. So they're motivated by you getting a job quickly, which does not necessarily mean that they want to make sure that you end up in the right, the absolute right company. The really good ones absolutely do, but everybody has, horror stories of this kind of stuff too. And like I said, the only con I would say is that they don't work for that company specifically. So you're going to want to do a little bit more research on asking the employees, what's the leadership style here like? How do you do this? How do you do that? So that's something you want to keep in mind for sure. And we've also written an article on Career Contessa about what it's like to work with a recruiter or a headhunter. So definitely check that out as well. Okay, Title Ting said, hi Lauren, how soon is too soon to contact a company on an application? When should you move on? So I like to apply this 1, 2, 3 rule. So if I apply for a job, let's say I applied online and then I found the person through LinkedIn and I sent my resume directly to them and I said, hey, I applied online. I'm really interested in the role. I've attached my resume for you to review as well, right? So let's start it at that. 1 week later, I would follow up with them. If I don't hear anything from them again, I would give it another 2 weeks and I might follow up one more time. And then I would give it 3 weeks as my last follow-up and then I would let it go. So that's what I mean about 1, 2, 3. So you're waiting 1 week and then 2 weeks from there and then 3 weeks from there. Hopefully they've gotten back to you. If the job is no longer active on the website, you can pretty much assume that they've filled it. So that's what my recommendation is find somebody that you can send your resume directly to, which is, contact 0, basically, day 0 of your contact, and then a week later follow up with them and then etc. So I don't think you can, I don't think there's such a thing as too soon, but I do think there's such a thing as too much. Okay, Seafarer said, if you're hoping to switch titles, say from marketing to production, would hiring managers consider you for an entry-level position or more likely disregard your application? So I think if I'm trying to understand correctly, you are making a career transition and you're wondering if they would consider you for entry level, even though your experience is not in quote unquote production. Yeah, I absolutely think they would. I think actually one of the benefits is that you're bringing a different skill set to something totally brand new. And so that's something that you'll have to really be really, I was gonna say skillful in, like, you wanna be able to connect the dots. So certainly I think they will connect you, or they will consider you for an entry level role as long as you are doing the dot connecting for them. So why are the skills that you learned in your marketing role, why are they relevant to the production role, or how are they going to help you bring this competitive advantage to the production role, for example? And so you want to be really clear on what that storyline is and tell them that from the get-go in your reach out, in your cover letter, etc. So I think absolutely they will look at your application, but you want to make sure that you're making it really clear and easy for them to understand why they should consider your application. Okay, Colini asks, how do you manage unsolicited, interesting opportunities when you just started a new job? Great, so what you're basically saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that you just got a new job and people are actually still reaching out to you to see if you're interested in new opportunities. So you definitely want to not ignore those or not be rude, because who knows, maybe you'll be looking for a new job or you'll want that connection in a year, right? So I really like when people, let's say when I was a recruiter and I would reach out, people would be really polite and say, thanks so much for thinking of me. I just started a new role, so the timing's not quite right, but I'd love to stay in touch. And that's all you have to say is, I'd love to stay in touch. Thanks so much for thinking of me. And I think that's a really great way of letting them know that, don't forget about me, but I'm not interested in learning more about this opportunity at this time. Okay, so Christina Covella, I probably butchered your name a little bit, sorry, asks, is it tacky to ask about salary before accepting an initial interview? I just don't want to waste either of our time. So I would say it can be looked upon poorly if you ask before you're even in the phone interview. Once you're in that phone interview, they're probably going to say, what are your salary expectations, or ask something along those lines. So salary hopefully will get brought up in the first phone interview. So worst case scenario, you're getting more phone interview practice. So I would say it's not that it's tacky, it's just that it sends a message, and I know this is not your intention probably, but it does send a little bit of a message of like, money is the most important thing about this role, and I want to know what that is before I waste my time. So I would say, like, for the sake of not irritating someone or them being like, oh, well, we were going to pay you enough, but you seem ungrateful about that. In the essence of like making sure nothing like that happens, I would take the phone interview, and then hopefully they will bring it up in the first interview. And if they don't bring it up, you can bring it up at the end of the interview and say, I'm really excited about this opportunity. I want to be really mindful to not, or I want to be really sensitive to making sure I'm using your time really well. Could you give me, an idea of what the salary range is for this position? So that's a polite way of basically asking about it without being too forceful. And I think it's kind of nice when you've already built the rapport in the in-person or the interview. Another question: what if your manager tells you about a job opening? Is that a good sign? Yeah, I think that's a great sign. You mean within the same company or at a different company? You can let me know, but I think it's definitely a great sign. Another person says, what can I do to make myself stand out when I'm applying to a completely different industry? I haven't had any luck. So definitely, we've written about this on Career Contessa a bunch of times, heard from real people who have done it. So, definitely go to careercontessa.com, and as well as our YouTube channel, because we've got some great resources on that. But I would say one of the most important things is, I was talking about this earlier, the whole like connecting the dots, but you should have a really, really great looking resume, and in your resume, you might want to put at the very top relevant experience, even if it's out of order, out of chronological order, and really connect the dots between what you're doing right now or what you've done in the past to what they're looking for. So you just want to be really, really strategic about making sure that any questions around like, well, you have zero experience doing this. You can say, well, so for example, I was an admin assistant and I was applying to recruiting jobs. And one of the common connectors I found between the two, even though I wasn't a recruiter, is that they both center a lot on customer experience. So I made that a huge theme in my resume and in my cover letter about how it's been a huge part of my job to make sure I'm creating an experience that makes the customer comfortable and coming back, etc. So maybe it's just one thing, but you want to be able to find that one thing that really connects the two. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the engagement on today's Mentor Monday. These were all really great questions. It sounds like a lot of people are job searching for 2019. Again, my name is Lauren McGoodwin. I'm the founder and CEO of Career Contessa. We've got tons of great resources on our site, careercontessa.com. We have a podcast called The Females, and we have our YouTube channel. So definitely keep up with us with those other resources, and we'll be back next month. We do this every month. So stay tuned for that and make sure you get your career questions in early. All right, guys, thanks a lot. Have a good one.